Hello my friends, welcome back to another well, not a quick tutorial, but more of a questions tutorial. Now I have a couple of questions. These are primarily from patrons, okay? This was going to be a Patreon tutorial, but I thought, you know what? So many people could benefit from something like this because we're really going to be talking about topics in painting which are the most important, really. Lots of different little subjects. So I thought I would share it with everybody on YouTube because I think so many people would benefit from this. I hope my patrons don't mind, but these are all Patreon questions, okay? If you would like to get in on the action, click the Patreon link at the end of the video. There's a lovely community over there, lots going on, lots of painting, lots of conversation. Cracking into it. The basics, okay? I'm going to explain something about the basics from my point of view anyway. They may not necessarily be right or correct, but I'm going to explain to you what I use, how I use them, all that kind of stuff, all right? First of all, a question from Joan. Joan, you have a question about my frames, how I attach my paintings to my frames, and let me show you. I have a profile here of a piece of frame that I use my router on, okay? It's just a regular piece of 2x1 or 1x2 if you're in another part of the world, and this is just a simple square piece of timber, okay? Normal white deal timber they call it, and I use my router to create this lovely profile. You see that wonderful profile there? Now I put a dark background behind me so you can see properly. That's my frame. It's sanded, painted, undercoated, painted. So if you're using something like this, even a simple square piece of timber, how I attach my paintings to my frames, especially if they're a stretched canvas, okay? I simply take some of these little corner brackets, okay? So let me show you. I have a painting here. One is very, very old painting. And let's imagine there's a little rebate on the front of this, okay, that sits into the painting, like so. All right? So what I basically do is, if you see the back of it here, I simply put a little bracket just like that, okay? I put one screw into the timber, one screw into the side of the canvas. Some people may disagree that they're going to ruin the canvas, but if it's something that's going to be in the frame all the time, it's absolutely fine. Just one screw in each side. Then it's covered with brown paper tape. I buy that in my local craft shop. It's just a roll, I don't have it at hand. A roll of brown paper tape. You wet it with a sponge, a damp sponge, leave it for a couple of seconds and it gets sticky and tacky, like a regular glued or gummed paper tape. Then you just cover it. You just roll your hand along it, cover it, and you put 2 or 3 of these on until you're happy with the covering. That's how I attach my paintings to the frame, okay? Small angle brackets. It's very, very simple and very effective. I make all my own frames. Sometimes if I'm using like a canvas board, we'll say, I would put a very heavy duty staple, a 10mm staple. They're quite big, and I have a very heavy duty staple gun, a DIY kind of a gun. I put it down at an angle so it just misses the corner of the canvas. I've no canvas here now at hand. It just misses the corner of the canvas, but it catches the edge to keep it down, and then cover that with paper again. That's another way of doing it. So that's how I attach my paintings to the frames. Very, very simple. Or you could buy little clips that clip up and hook over your canvas. So there's lots and lots of stuff out there that you can do. Another one from Joan, is it Joan? Using different blacks. Using different blacks. That's a good question. I use, in all my paintings, lamp black, okay? I don't know if you can see it when I was covered in paint, but it's a lamp black. I love this black because you can do so much with this black. Now, it has a cold pigment in it. It's kind of a bluey black. Do you understand what I mean? So you can create beautiful greens with this black. And that's how I mix my greens. If you're mixing greens for an autumn scene, we'll say, or a typical landscape, summer landscape, I would mix lamp black with cadmium yellow. Where's my cadmium yellow? I saw it there earlier. It's there somewhere. Lamp black with cadmium yellow pale, or any cadmium yellow. and that will give you a beautiful, rich, warm green. I'll mix them now for you in just a moment on some canvas, okay? Just to compare. So you have lamp black. Mars black is another one, but Mars black is very, very rich. It's pure, pure black. It's the blackest of blacks, okay, that you can get. That might be a little bit overpowering for you if you're kind of starting out in painting, or even if you're an advanced amateur as well. It can be very, very overpowering for your painting. So, you know, this, I find lamp black is brilliant, because even on its own, it's pure black. But when mixed with different shades of colours, you can get so many different hues with this. Mix this with even a Naples yellow, and it gives you a lovely kind of a soft, warm grey. All right, or mixed with burnt umber, it gives you a very dark, rich, browny grey. So with that, and maybe a little bit of white, you can get some beautiful greys. I use this for everything. It's fantastic. You can use Payne's Grey. They do class Payne's Grey as a black in the black family as well, because Payne's Grey on its own is very, very dark. It's almost a black. But Payne's Grey for me, I use Payne's Grey for years and years, but I find Payne's Grey is just a little bit too soft. It doesn't have the punch I want in painting. It's brilliant if you want to just create some soft, gentle greys for skies and stuff like that. But I find the black is much more versatile. You can just mix a lot more different shades with this. You can mix beautiful shades of grey and beautiful shades of green as well, and even dark, rich blues, grey blues. So that's my go-to for any dark shade, okay? It's up to yourself. There is an ivory black as well, but ivory black is more on the brown side of black. It's like a fawny, browny black. So when mixed with white or Naples yellow or something like that, it gives you more of an ivory, kind of a dark, browny, black, grey kind of a shade. So it's more forgiving in that sense. If you like warmer tones in your landscapes, I would go with ivory black if you don't like cold kind of colours. But this will achieve pretty much any shade of grey or black or browny black that you need. Any shade whatsoever. It's my colour. I love it. I absolutely love it. Blues. I've started introducing some new blues in my palette. Notably, cerulean blue. And this is a beautiful, it's like an aquamarine kind of a blue. It's beautiful, especially for seascapes and for creating distant bluey greens in a landscape as well, for trees and that kind of thing. I just use it a little bit at a time. I'm still now I did use this again for years and years when I was younger, but I've kind of started taking it up again. It's a really nice alternative to cobalt. It's a little bit more on the green side of cobalt, but it's fantastic for landscapes, for nice earthy colours, and I love earthy colours. You know me by now. I love earthy tones in my landscapes. They just seem to make it much more natural. You know what I mean? So that is that question. Also, I suppose a couple of other quick questions. Palettes. I use paper palettes for my tutorials. When I'm out and about, I like to use this kind of a palette right here, a standard timber palette, okay? A timber wooden palette. This is well used. This is about 15 years old. This thing is just, I suppose it's probably gained about 1/8 of an inch because of there's so much paint on the palette. You can see that. Traditionally, it's a very thin sheet of plywood, some type of a wood. But I love using these. It's just more natural to feel. I might try a tutorial someday, but if I was mixing a tutorial, if I was painting a tutorial with this, you would find it very difficult to see the colours because it's just so messy, you know. So that's why I use a paper palette for my tutorials. They're fantastic in the sense that you can just tear them off, throw them in a bin and start afresh with a nice clean palette the next time. So they're fantastic for that. Turpentine, thinners, what do we use? A lot of people out there are using liquid, okay? Liquid is a lovely thinner. I've used it a few times, but it's primarily used for kind of a little bit of detailed work. I wouldn't use liquid if I was painting, say, a big sky now or something like that. You can if you like, but liquid is used really for kind of detailed work, fine leaves on trees and reflections, that kind of thing. It just gives you a lovely smooth feeling, you know. So I use turpentine mixed with linseed oil, okay? That's just regular artist turpentine, or even DIY turpentine. It's just pure turpentine. Then I take linseed oil, okay? Now this is, I don't know what language this is, I'm not sure, is it, I don't know, Swedish or something like that, or German or something like that? You probably know yourselves, but you can see on the cap there it says linseed, okay? 11 euros for a big tub like this. It's artist linseed oil, it's refined, so this will last months and months and months, you know, probably a year at least. So what I do then is, I will take, in a small bottle or a big bottle, whatever you're using, I will take about 80% turpentine, around there, and then the rest in linseed oil, okay? The linseed oil just turns it yellow, and that makes it lovely and oily for mixing, and you get this wonderful kind of oily, shiny, glossy type of a feeling when you're putting your paint on. And for blending colours together then it's fantastic. What you can also do is, before you start painting, I know a lot of people follow the Bob Ross method, okay? There's a lot of people out there doing it. You know, the internet is saturated with Bob Ross instructors showing their techniques. What they use is a liquid clear or liquid white. And, excuse me, liquid clear is lovely in its own right. I just find it a little bit too slippery. Liquid clear, liquid white, especially if you're using liquid white as a base to paint on, that basically tones down all of your colours. So you're basically mixing your colours onto a white paint. Do you understand what I mean? Now it's a tinned out white, the liquid white. It's just basically titanium white with some thinners in it. But that kind of, it takes the vibrancy out of your colours when you're putting them on a canvas, I find. So you can use it. Liquid clear is okay as well, but I just find this a little bit too slippery for me. I tried it a couple of years back. I didn't like it at all. It was just too slippery. I find the linseed oil as a base, even on its own, a very thin coat of linseed oil on your canvas with a bit of tissue or cloth. It just gives you a lovely base to work on. It's not too slippery or oily. You still feel the toughness of the canvas grain gripping the paint. Do you know what I mean? So it's not over the top. I would use this. I love using this method. It's much easier to control your paint and control your brush strokes, okay? And of course I do paint onto dry canvas as well a lot of the time also. Canvases, I love using canvas boards only because they're so durable. Canvas boards are fantastic if you're out doing a plein air painting. They're fantastic for that, because on more than one occasion I've painted on a stretched canvas. I could be at, say, a craft fair or something like that, sitting down painting away, and all of a sudden there's an accident, something sharp or something pointy hits the canvas on the side, leaning against a table or something, and it punches the hole through the canvas. All too often this has happened, so I take canvas boards with me if I'm going out and about, and I use them for tutorials as well because they're just much more durable. Stretched canvases are fantastic to work on. They have a lovely kind of a give in the canvas as you're painting along, and it feels very traditional and it feels real proper when you're painting. They're fantastic. But comparing the two side by side, if you did the same painting twice, you would not be able to tell the difference if it's a stretched canvas or a canvas board, okay? Unless you pick it up. It's pretty much impossible to tell the difference. So use stretched canvases if you like, use boards. It's completely up to yourself, all right? Absolutely up to yourself. So that's kind of the basic side of things. Brushes are very important. I have a question here from STE Coach. I'm not sure your full name, but natural or synthetic brushes, which are best and which do you prefer? I prefer synthetic, you know me by now. All my brushes are synthetic, very soft, semi-synthetic brushes, okay? The only bristle brush I use is my fan brush, okay? these are traditionally bristle. You can get these in watercolour, soft sables as well, but I use these for trees, grasses, especially creating little fields and that kind of thing, and creating texture. They're fantastic for that. I primarily use soft synthetic brushes, okay? I have a jar here full of them, okay? Soft synthetic brushes. Let me see now, can you see this? Okay, now this one is quite worn, and they're lovely because when they're new, they're very sharp and crisp, like this one here, okay? They're nice and sharp and crisp. You can get some nice fine lines with these brushes, and they're beautiful. You can create lovely blending with these. And the trick with these is, especially for trees and that kind of thing, I'll be doing a little tutorial on little bushes and trees in just a moment. When they're worn like this is perfect. You see the way that's worn out? It's kind of splayed out slightly at the top. Over time, after 3 or 4 uses, it bulks up down here towards the ferrule of the brush, okay, the metal part, and the paint gets kind of stuck in there, only little, and it pushes the bristles outwards. And this is beautiful for creating bushes and trees and even grass, because you can dab like that, you see, loaded with paint. It's absolutely fantastic, and it gives you a very random effect for tiny little bushes and stuff like that. So all my brushes are synthetic, very soft synthetic. I also use my little stubby brushes. This is a new one. I sell these actually a set of 3. They're fantastic, and these as well, when they kind of start getting worn, they splay outwards, and you can create lovely little bushes and stuff like that. So they're fantastic. They're very soft. They're really, probably, I suppose you could use them for watercolours and acrylics as well. And I also use some very, very fine pointy brushes, okay, for detail. Now these are just regular, cheap, pointy brushes, synthetic again, and they're perfect for getting small details on trees, little branches, twigs, that kind of thing. So they're perfect for that, really. Cheap brushes is all. You don't really need to have to go and buy very expensive brushes. People think there's this kind of, I suppose, this persona that if you buy a really expensive set of brushes that it makes you a better painter. That's completely untrue, okay? I don't agree with that at all. It may improve your painting in certain aspects, but regular cheap brushes are absolutely fine. Now, if I was buying bristles, if I was using bristle brushes, I would buy good bristle brushes because they retain their shape, okay? They don't lose their shape, and they're properly cut as well. A cheap bristle brush will just stick out everywhere, okay? It doesn't retain its shape, and it doesn't hold itself properly. So do buy expensive ones if you can, or even something around the middle of the road type of ones. But if you're using these cheap synthetics, just go for basic synthetics, okay? They're absolutely fine. They're wonderful brushes, and I do all my paintings with synthetic brushes, and I've done so for years and years. So that's kind of the brushes, really. I'm going to do 1 or 2 little small things on a piece of blank canvas, creating trees and bushes and clouds, okay? Joan, was it Joan? Joan. No, Parsley Power Smith on Patreon. You're asking me about clouds. I'm going to show you how to create some nice, simple, easy to follow clouds, okay? But they're really nice for you to use in any painting. I think a lot of people overthink clouds, okay? Clouds are very spontaneous. If you force it too much and you try to get it too perfect, it just runs away from you, okay? Sometimes a simple brush stroke like that, a little flick coming down from the sky, creates a beautiful feeling of movement coming down from the sky, okay? A simple little brush stroke. And you can go into some kind of more detail later on. If you want little highlights and that kind of thing, that's something that you get with practice. But you see, I find for me, a lot of beginners, you see, are following the Bob Ross. Now, there's nothing whatsoever wrong with the Bob Ross kind of method. It's fantastic in its own right. But a lot of beginners are following the Bob Ross style, and they're really limiting themselves in terms of trying new types of trees and clouds, that kind of thing. So they're really kind of holding themselves back, really, in a sense, by following kind of the Bob Ross style with the fan brush and the large brush, dabbing like this, you know. And what happens is that every painting they do looks exactly the same. It has the very same techniques, and you can spot it a mile away. So with simple little changes, now you can still keep all of those techniques as you're going, but I find with simple little changes, maybe trying a different brush, for example, can make a big difference. And especially for skies, using smaller brushes really makes a big difference. I find a lot of people, they're using these big brushes, these big 1 and 2 inch flat brushes, and you know, the clouds, as I said, they just look the same each time, and they're very big and chunky up in the sky, and there's no direction and there's no flow with the clouds. So I'm going to show you 1 or 2 little techniques as well, just painting simple clouds and just keeping it simple. Don't overthink it, okay? And light is a very important factor when painting clouds. I notice as well a lot of people, especially with the big brushes, they just paint a big kind of assortment of white fluffy clouds going across the sky, but they don't have highlights, they don't have shadows. Do you understand what I mean? So a simple thing like putting a slight shadow on a cloud can bring an entire painting to life, and it can bring your sky to life as well. And that then tells you which way the light is coming from in the painting or in the scene. So that will determine all your lights and shadows from there on. Okay, does that make sense? So let's try 1 or 2 little things on canvases here now, blank canvases. They're not primed because it's just for doodling, as they say. And let's try a couple of little different techniques for you. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. I'll be right back. Let me get a bit of canvas and we'll start painting. Okay, let's start from the beginning, okay? Let's just try some bushes. And I just want to show you first on one side, I just have a small bit, an off cut of a canvas here. It's not primed or anything. I have a couple of colours laid out. I'll tell you what colours I have as I'm going along, alright? First of all, I just want to show you about lamp black, what different types of grey you can get with the lamp black, okay? I'm just going to take any little brush at all, look. Any rough brush, just a nice little flat brush, okay? It's slightly warm, but it's fine. I have some thinners here. A little drop is all you need because it goes a long way. And I'm going to show you as well about how I clean my brushes as I go along to keep your thinners as clean as possible. A lot of people tend to just dip their brush in like this and swish it around. That's completely wrong, alright? Especially for oil painting. It's fine for watercolours and acrylics, but not for oils. I'm going to dampen my brush ever so slightly, so it's just slightly damp, okay? I dried it on a tissue, but it's just, you see, you can see it, it's just a slightly damp brush. Let's try some different shades of grey. Now, let's take a little black, okay? And this lamp black now is very, very strong, so you only need the tiniest little amount. Let's take a bit of titanium white, and I want to mix that together. Now you can see that's a lovely, a regular grey, okay? Let's call it a regular grey, a nice simple regular grey, and it's slightly cool because of the fact that lamp black has a hint of blue in it, you see? So for a cool sky, this is perfect. A simple grey, look. Let me put this on. And this is going to soak into the canvas now very quickly because the canvas is not primed. So that's a nice simple grey. Would you agree? The middle of the road, nice simple grey. But what I do is, if we took that colour now, we'll say, okay, that lamp black with white. Now, if you want to soften this, if you feel that this is too cold, yeah, what you could do is basically take some Naples yellow. Naples yellow is my favourite colour, probably out of all my colours. I don't go anywhere without Naples yellow. Take a good bit of Naples yellow. Now Naples yellow is very, very opaque, but it's very forgiving. It's not very, very rich in colour. It doesn't have a huge amount of pigment, so you can get away with putting lots of this in, and it has only a little bit of effect. So you can see now, we have a much warmer grey. And because, and this is where it gets interesting, you see, because of the fact that there's a bit of blue in the black, it's a bluey black, when you put the Naples yellow in, it goes, it's very difficult to describe. There's almost a hint of green, a kind of a mucky, kind of a greeny grey. So this now, you see this? You see how that warms the grey lovely? And if you're painting a nice autumn landscape, or even just a regular landscape in general, and you want a nice soft grey, isn't that lovely? And you can add more and more white into this as you go to make it lighter and lighter and lighter. You see? Isn't that lovely? So you can see now the variety of greys that you can get just from mixing those three colours together. Okay? Now you can go the opposite way and you can add burnt umber into this. That would really warm it. Okay? So let's take a hint of burnt umber, a hint of black, and a hint of white. Okay? Now I didn't clean my brush. There's no need to clean the brush. Now that would give you a wonderful browny grey, like a cappuccino. It's almost like a cappuccino grey, okay? And you can add more and more into this as you feel. There's so many things that you can do with lamp black. It's just amazing, especially for earthy colours, okay? For lovely, rich, earthy, grey kind of browns. That's beautiful for that. Now, I'm going to show you how I clean my brush, okay? What I do is, take a bit of tissue, paper towel, anything, dip the brush once into your turpentine, pick it up, soak it with turpentine, and then leave the tissue soak off the colour, look. Now what that's doing is, the turpentine is still completely clean, look. It's 90% clean. Then just do it again until you're happy. Now I'm happy because I have most of the colour gone off of the brush, okay? It's not completely clean, but it's fine. Okay, another one for a nice landscape, a nice warm landscape, is lamp black, titanium white, and burnt sienna. Come down here, take some burnt sienna. And burnt sienna is a reddy brown. It's a lovely, rich, reddy brown. And you can even create some beautiful autumn shades with this as well. Okay, it's similar to the one we did earlier, but you can see now it's more in the brown side. But it's a very soft, forgiving brown. Okay, it has a bit of grey in it. Well, that looks quite dark on camera, don't it? But all you have to do is take a bit of white and lighten it as you feel you need to. You see? Now I'm going to try clean my brush again, just give it a quick clean, just get most of the colour off. Let's go for the opposite end. So these are all the nice warm greys, okay? Let's try lamp black. Go up here into this, okay, it's fine. A little bit of white. And then let's try a little hint of phaylo blue. Now that's going to give you a really bluey black. A tiny bit, because phaylo blue is so rich in pigment. A tiny amount is all you need. That gives you a very cold grey, you see. And you can just keep adding to that as you need to lighten it and lighten it as you see fit. So they're all cold colours. Now, you can also take some black, some phaylo blue, and take a little bit of crimson. And that will give you a nice, rich grey, okay? A nice, rich, cold, I suppose, if you're painting shadows on fruit, like plums and grapes, that kind of thing, this is perfect for that shadow colour. You can see what I mean? They're very, very cold. And you can add white in to lighten it, or you could add more black or blue to deepen it. So they're completely at the opposite end. So I prefer these. I think these are nice and soft and warm. Would you? You can then take a bit of white, add a bit more white into it, and lighten it and make a nice bright grey, but it's cold. It's a cold grey. So for winter scenes, I would use this palette, okay, for winter scenes. And for regular summer scenes then, that kind of a palette up there. So you can see now the amount of different tones of grey that we have just from mixing 2 or 3 colours together. And that's from lamp black. If you were using ivory black is more of this type of a blacky brown, like that. So when mixed with white, you'll get this kind of a shade straight away. But you're limited. So lamp black gives you so much variety. Okay? So bear that in mind. Now, the next thing I want to do is practice some nice little trees and bushes. Let's have a bit of fun, shall we? My favourite green is, let me just dampen my brush again. My favourite green is lamp black and cadmium yellow. Because we have blue in that black, okay, because it's the bluey black, when you add yellow, it picks up the blue and it goes a lovely rich olive green. Look at that. Now I have a little bit of thinners in this, and you can lighten it and lighten it as you like. This is a typical nice landscape dark green for a bush, okay? Now, let's try a nice little bush. You see the way my brush is splayed out at the top of that, okay? It's loaded up with paint. That's the kind of effect I want. So I'm just going to go. Let's pretend there is a nice row of bushes somewhere. I always start with a darker shade. And it's basically a case of just going up and down like that. And a trick is, well, not a trick I suppose, to keep it random. So you have a little bit of a small one, then you maybe have a big one just there, like that, okay? Because what a lot of people tend to do in painting is they keep them like this, all the same, all the way across. And it just does not look very natural, you see? So look, a little bit of a small one, a little bit of a small one there. And go up again, make it a nice big one. Don't worry about the final shape of these because this is just the undercoat, okay? We can refine the shape of the bush with our highlights. So we have a nice rich dark green. Now, the next thing you can do is go right into your cadmium yellow, okay? And you'll get a natural green because you already have a dark colour on your brush anyway. So just pull some cadmium yellow out and then let's go with some slightly brighter highlights, you see? And you see the way I'm twisting the brush as I go. That gives you a nice natural shape. You see? And then I'm softening it back into that darker shade, ever so slightly. So this is more or less just thick cadmium yellow on its own, but it has a hint of the green still on the brush. So now we know the light is coming from the right hand side over here, isn't it? And don't overdo it. The problem with trees, a lot of people, especially beginners, when painting trees, they just go and dab, 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 dab all over the place like that. And it ends up just very messy and blobby all the way along. The trick is, I find less is more, okay? I'm just cleaning my brush again, very quickly. I'm going to take now some Naples yellow and some cadmium yellow, okay? That's going to give me a huge bright highlight. Okay? Lots of thick paint again on the brush, you see that? Lots of thick paint. And then I'm going to go again on the very outside edge. And I'm kind of more or less using just a corner of the brush here. Alright? And then just let that fizzle out back into that medium green that we've just painted. Little bit there, a little bit there. Don't think too much about it, okay? Just give it a slight dab because that's where the light is catching. Now, if you want to create an extra kind of a layer, so one tree in front of the other, let me show you. Look, you could just, first let's put a bit of highlight on this, very gently. Then you could go in front of that one with another little highlight, you see? And so on. You can do as much or as little of this as you like. One here. So now, that one has pushed that tree back slightly. Isn't that lovely? And that's the basic technique, okay? That's the basic technique that I use in all my bushes and trees and all that kind of thing. You can use the very same technique for grass if you like. So let me just fill my brush with paint, okay? A little bit of cadmium yellow, there's a bit of dark green on this already. And look, you can use the rough brush like that, flick it upwards. Or you can use a fan brush as well, completely up to yourself. And that creates wonderful grasses. Now, you may need to add a little bit more turpentine to get the little flicks that you want, but you see, it makes wonderful grass. Let's take a bit of dark colour, some phaylo blue with some black, and pop a few darks in, okay? And that's a nice, simple technique for painting little grasses in a field. Now, one thing when you're painting bushes is always sit them down, because if you don't sit them down, they look like they're just floating in midair. So just take a little bit of green, small bit of green, and just pop a little bit of light green under the bushes like that, okay? And that will help sit your bushes or your tree, whatever it is, sit them down on the grass. And even if they soften into the bushes just ever so slightly here and there, look. Doesn't that give you a lovely natural feeling? A lovely natural kind of grassy field. Nothing too complicated. Now that was very simple, wasn't it? Nice and simple. It's the very same for painting trees. Let's paint a very simple tree. I'm going to take just any worn out round brush. I'm going to take some burnt umber, lots of thinners in this. Look, it's like watercolour. And let's just paint a very simple tree. I'll go over here, look. Now the canvas hasn't been primed, it's really dry, so it's soaking in this paint an awful lot. But look, I'm just going up here, very simply. I just want to create just a demonstration of a very fast tree, okay? And you can even allow it to hit and miss here and there. Don't be too fussy, especially if you're putting foliage on all of this. Okay, we have a lovely tree there now, would you agree? Just simple, nice and simple. If you want to go an extra little bit, an extra mile as they say, let's take some Naples yellow and pop a little bit of light just on one side of that. Again, hit and miss. Just a slight little bit. Okay? Then, we go back to our regular brush. It's the very same technique that we use for these. Okay, I'll take a dark green, and I'm just going to pop a little bit of dark green around here and there on that tree. Again, don't worry about getting this perfect, because our highlights are going to kind of sharpen up everything. Okay? Go right out high up on top here, okay? Because let's just imagine it's holding a lot of foliage. Nice and simple. Then clean your brush again, very quickly. And let's pick up some rich cadmium yellow and a little Naples yellow. You can add a little touch of burnt umber into this if you wished. But this is just a simple, nice little simple exercise. And pop a little light green on the outside edges of some of these where you think the light may be catching. Okay? And that's just a very basic, simple technique for painting a simple tree in a landscape. Now, of course, you can go a lot further than that by adding, you know, little bits of tree trunks going in front of some of these leaves. Strengthen some of the ones that are there. You see what I mean? You could just add little bits to that if you like, but you don't really have to, okay? This is just a simple exercise. And then let's just give this a little bit of shadow. And the shadows are very important because that tells you the direction of the light. So a little bit of dark green going across the grass, just like that, okay? Very, very simple. That just tells you where the light is coming from again, you see? It's a nice simple exercise. So that is one or two of those techniques for you. I'm now going to do a nice little sky. And I'm not going to do a full sky. I'm just going to paint some simple clouds on their own, just to help you along, okay? I'll take a clean brush, another clean flat brush, okay? It's very worn, it doesn't matter. Dampen that very slightly. And I'm going to put on a very light blue. Now for that I have cobalt blue and plenty of white. I want this a very whitey blue. Cobalt blue is lovely for this because it's very, very forgiving. If you use phthalo blue for this, it's just going to overpower your colour completely. So be very careful when using phthalo blue. All right? It's a very, very rich colour. Now, we have a nice, simple, whitey blue there. Let's put that on. Just in a little patch here, okay? Just want to show you very quickly how to paint nice, simple clouds, but very effective clouds. And again, I would advise, you know, try and move away slightly from the Bob Ross type of clouds if you can. because it'll just overtake what you're doing and it'll hold you back. It really will hold you back, and you will find every painting that you paint looks exactly the same, and it'll become very frustrating for you as an artist, because you'll think, well, you know, all my clothes look the same. How do I change them? Where do I go? So this is just a simple way of painting a nice simple sky and some clouds. Okay? Now, that's a nice simple blue sky going off into the horizon. I'm now going to just clean this brush very quickly. All right. And the most easy way of doing this, I'm not sure if this will show on camera now or not, but simple way of doing this is take any small flat brush like this, around small kind of a rough brush. Let's just pull out some titanium white, lots of titanium white, and depending on which way you want your clouds going and which way you want the light coming from. Let's imagine the light is coming from the left hand side of the sky. The sun is over here, okay? Shining across. So what I tend to do then is I go around in little circles like this, look, pulling it inwards. And as it gets down towards the horizon line, they start to flatten out, okay? Because if you look at the sky, just go out and look at the sky, you'll notice over in the horizon, all the clouds in the horizon are very flat. So what I do then is, I just pull this along and I soften it over into that blue, very gently, look, just going around and around, and vary your clouds. So don't have them all exactly the same all the way. You could have one big one up here, look, twist the brush around, give it a bit of shape. And another thing with clouds is they're very spontaneous, they go everywhere, they just can go wherever they like, okay? And then soften that back into your blue. That's a nice simple sky. All right, let's paint a few in the distance. Off in the horizon, dab, 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 right across. They don't have to have little circle puffs or anything on them like that. Just a simple couple of lines going across. You see? You have a simple cloud in the sky. Now, that's fine, okay? But to give this a little more life, you should really try and give it a little bit of shadow here and there. What I mean by that is, let's mix a nice shadow colour for these. Now, I'm not going to go too cold, I'm not going to go too warm. I'm thinking cobalt blue. Let's just try a little cobalt blue, a tiny amount of crimson. That'll give us a nice pink, okay? So that's a nice mauve, let's call it a mauve. And then a touch of burnt umber, and that will warm it for you. And it also knocks back that mauve, that pinky mauve in the colour. This gives you a beautiful warm grey for your clouds. And let's go in underneath and add a little bit of shadow into those clouds, look. And I'm basically just dabbing, you see? Dab, 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 dab. And this is just a quick demonstration now, all right? If I was doing a proper tutorial or painting, I'd take my time with this and I'd really, you know, go slow for you. But this is just a little quick lesson. So what I've done is I've kept the bright side of the clouds as they are, and I've just softened this brown, well not brown, this warm kind of grey into the backs of those clouds, you see? And then soften it out. I'm just dabbing, simple, dab, 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 barely touching the canvas. And that allows you to create a direction of your shadow. You can pull the paint around, you see? Pull the paint around, creating a nice shadowed area at the back of your cloud. See, a nice simple way of doing it. Now I'm going to darken it ever so slightly. I'll take some black and a hint of burnt umber. And I'm just going to darken a little bit more. Now don't worry that this is too dark, because what's going to happen, this colour is going to start softening into the colours that are already there, getting lighter and lighter, you see. And that's the lovely thing about oil painting, is because you can soften the colours in to what's already on the canvas. It's still wet, so you can soften them in lovely. In under there, create some nice direction on the cloud. So the cloud now you see. It's kind of swooping down, isn't it? You could add a little bit to one or two of these. Now this brush, albeit, is a little bit too big for this, okay? Small round brush, add a little bit of shadow into some of those off in the distance, all right? And then what you can do is just take a nice soft brush, if you want. This is my wife's makeup brush, okay? She gave it to me because it wasn't being used, and I kept annoying and tormenting her about it, so she gave it to me eventually. I'm going to pull the light side down into the dark side in little curves like this, look. So I'm keeping that bright edge, okay? And then you can pull the rest even back into your blue sky if you wish. See, making it lovely and soft. And then for these ones, let's just go across side to side, because they're so far off in the distance, they're going to be almost pretty much horizontal the whole way. So soften them across, and you have a nice simple cloud in the sky. Isn't that lovely? A nice simple cloud. Now I'm going to go one step further for you, okay? You don't have to do this next step, but you can if you wish. To create layers in your clouds, I get these questions a lot, to create different layers, okay? So we have a lovely cloud there now finished. If you want to put another cloud in front of this, just simply take a slightly smaller brush, dry, take some titanium white, lots of white, look, and then let's put another one in front of this. Let's pick a nice spot, let's go here. Same technique, up in front of that, okay, and then pull it out. So now we have created, quite simply, another cloud in front of that dark cloud, and then you can just add a little bit of that shadow onto this one as well, look. Now I do as well go around in little circles like this, just to soften the colours in. Gives you a lovely soft texture. And I'll pull it out into the blue, let it just sort of fizzle out and disappear into that blue sky. Isn't that wonderful? And again, because it's getting down lower and lower, it's going to be almost horizontal across then, you see? And finally, just take your soft brush and do the very same process again. I'm leaving that white edge, okay? Very carefully. Soften it out into your blue sky. Pull it across at the base down here. And I think that in itself would make a lovely little sky for a landscape. Any landscape you like. Isn't that wonderful? And let me zoom in slightly so you can see it in more detail. You see? Just keep it simple. Try to keep it as simple as you can, all right? Nice and simple. Right, let me think now. Is there anything else you would like me to try? How about we put a little bit of land or something off there in the distance? Will we try it? Just for a bit of fun. Yeah? Let's take a little naples yellow, take that nice bright green, and because it's so far away, I'm going to put in some phaylo blue. Okay? And I'm going to take a little black. So plenty of blue in this mix, some white, and perhaps even a tiny amount of crimson. That just softens it ever so slightly. That makes a lovely soft distant colour, you see? Nice distant green. And you can even soften it up into your sky as well to create a nice sort of a misty distance off there. Look at that, isn't that lovely? Up and down, just to give it a little bit of shape. Okay? Now, as it comes closer, it's going to start getting richer. So your greens will always get richer as it comes closer. Some lamp black and cadmium yellow. Okay? Just go like that and then soften it up into that blue. Well, not the blue, that light green. Soften it up into that light green. So now you'll have a lovely transition from a soft distant colour down into a nice rich green. And you can keep going with that rich green, lamp black, cadmium yellow, okay? Just 2 colours. Keep going. And then when you get to the front, it just gets really dark. So let's take some phaylo blue and black. And look, that gives you a nice rich dark green then. Now my canvas is very dry again, as I said, so I need to mix plenty of turpentine into this to give me plenty of coverage. But I'll just go that far. I just want to imagine that this is coming all the way down, all right? Soften it up again, up and down, up and down. Isn't that lovely? Now let's create a little row of bushes just along from one side, okay? Simple. Let's take some black, cadmium yellow. My cadmium yellow is gone, but it's fine. I'm going to start, just look, nice, small, little bushes, nice variety of shapes and sizes, okay? And it's softening into the green underneath. That's fine. Let's go up here and make a nice big one at this side here, okay? Now, there we go. Then just give your brush a very quick clean. I'll get some naples, or not, yeah, some cadmium yellow. I'm twisting my words today, I'm very bad. Let's take some cadmium yellow on its own. Lots of this, okay? Lots of paint on the tip of your brush. And again, the light is coming from the left-hand side. So let's go on the left-hand side, the outer left side of these bushes. And pop some cadmium yellow on its own around the outside edge of some of these, and let it sort of soften back into the darker colour as well. You see? And I'm twisting my brush as I go, you see that? Now let's go a little step further. Let's take some Naples yellow and cadmium yellow. And that will give us a really bright highlight then, look. I'm just going on the outside edge. And this is just a simplified version of what you could do in your landscape, okay? And let's perhaps cut one across in front of this here, okay? Create another little bush. And the next thing to do is to sit those down, because right now they're just sort of floating on the canvas, aren't they? So let's take a little cadmium yellow and a hint of white perhaps. And let's just put a nice little line across under those. Nice wiggly line. And that'll sit them down lovely. Okay? And that's a nice simple row of bushes. And that's one you can try at home. Okay, you can try all of these techniques yourself. Don't be afraid, just try to keep things nice and simple in your mind when you're doing this. So that's it, my friends. That's about the size of it. Let me turn these cameras and all this stuff around so you can see me here. I hope that's okay. I hope it's not too shaky. I have to get I really have to buy some kind of a boom or something for all this. So there we are. That's not bad. That will do. I hope you enjoy that, my friends. Some little tips there. I hope you got some little bit of inspiration and a bit of courage to go and try it. Just try something different and keep the techniques nice and simple. Those clouds really are kind of basic clouds. You can add more highlights, more shadows. Just check out the tutorials on my page and you'll see just so many different types of skies that you can paint. Sunsets, winter scenes, all of that. But I hope it's helped, okay? Again, thank you so much for your support. Check Patreon out if you're interested. Lots of stuff going on over there. Brilliant stuff. Happy painting, and to you all, thank you so much for your support. You've been so kind, you really have. And I'm looking forward to seeing lots of your paintings with these lovely skies, okay? Go on, get your stuff and have a bit of fun. Keep it simple. Simple, 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 okay? Don't overthink what you're doing. Just keep it simple. I'll see you next week for a tutorial. God bless and happy painting.